All right, everyone. Rollingstone sadly is incapable of learning from its mistakes. They are doubling down on their attacks of Sound of Freedom, the new film that came out that actually managed to outstrip Indiana Jones. I mean, not necessarily the greatest Indiana Jones installment. There's only 3 canonical movies. But when a small budget movie from a minor studio manages to match major productions and really turn a profit, by the way. I don't know how much profit Sound of Freedom has made already. It hasn't even hit streaming yet, I think. So, cha-ching, congratulations to your studio. I think that you'll be able to have some extra special effects in your next Christian film. Anyway, the Rolling Stone continues to attack the movie. I would point out that they really liked Cuties. They were gushing over it at the time and calling people conspiracy theorists for having a problem with the movie. They continue to do so now. This is their tweet that got massively ratioed, and I was one of the ones helping to do it. I think I've got twice as many likes on my tweet as the original. This is Rolling Stone. It shows you both how irrelevant they have become and how bad their take was. To know thousands of adults will absorb Sound of Freedom, it's actually millions, by the way, this vigilante fever dream and come away thinking themselves better informed on a hidden civilizational crisis. Well, it's profoundly depressing. Worse still, they'll want to spread the word. Oh my God, they're going to spread the word about the fact that yes, indeed, there are kids being trafficked by narcos and shit at the U.S. border and beyond. Well, they are. Are you debating the point that these sorts of raids happen and that there are law enforcement cover-ups involved in some cases? If you got a narco state, fucking Nicaragua or something, don't you think that narcos just bribe the local officials and then skate? If they don't get outright caught at the U.S. border, then it's a miracle anyway, because that's like Swiss cheese, so there's really nothing stopping it. Kids are trafficked all the time. It's not just a national issue, by the way, it's an international one. How many child slaves do you think exist in China? And I don't just mean the ones that are working in sweatshops semi-legally. The 12-year-olds that are making your Nikes and shit like that. There's sex trafficking. There's labor trafficking, so mainly they're just working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and then they die eventually of exhaustion mainly, or kill themselves, and then their body is thrown to the pigs, sometimes in the literal sense. Kids are exploited all around the world. Happens all the time. There's probably a million slaves in Libya alone. They've got open-air slave markets after the U.S. got involved there. Before it was at least semi-under control because people were afraid of Gaddafi. It's basically pick your poison mode, but I think that it was a little bit more stable. There were some people that were kind of kicking it on the U.S. border. For example, earlier this year we had a report, I talked about it at the time, that of the tens of thousands of unaccompanied minors that had come to the border, a substantial proportion, about 35% if I remember correctly, of them have disappeared. They came in, they were given supposedly to a guardian or someone else that was trustworthy who could establish, hey, I'm connected with them. And then they check up on them to make sure that the kids are still there and so forth to proceed with, the processing process because they've been released in the country. They couldn't even contact a large proportion of them, over 10,000 minors. Most of them are probably one of 3 things right now: being raped, being worked to death, or already dead. I hate to tell you that, but that's the majority of that group. Now, it could be, the phone number changed, we forgot to tell you. It could be that the person is actually, they're involved with crime and maybe not exploiting kids, but, they've run off or something. Maybe they left the country. That's going to be a minority of those cases, unfortunately. A substantial double-digit proportion of all the unaccompanied minors are now slaves. Or dead already, of course. What's the average lifespan of someone who works 12 hours a day, 7 days a week on one small meal? Probably not that long. But the cartels don't care when they have 10-year-olds mixing the vat of meth. They're like, if it blows up, we didn't lose anything of value. And they get the fringe bonus of being able to abuse them in other ways. Uncle Sam facilitates it. This is reality. This is not a fever dream. It's not a conspiracy theory. We've already known this. This was why. Apparently, it's become politically incorrect to note that there are kids being traveled around the world as slaves, like they're pets or something. Apparently, this is now a conspiracy theory. It's news to me because I've got government reports that show it over and over again. Hell, even the globalist NGOs and shit, they do reports on this stuff. They're willing to admit to the fact that it happens. They just pretend that none of the white hats or any people like that are ever involved in the abuse. Hint, they are. How many kids do you think were abused by Clinton Foundation workers and Red Cross workers and UN workers down in Haiti over the last decade? It's probably in the tens of thousands, thereabouts, maybe more. Could be a little bit less, I suppose, but it's a significant proportion of the Haitian minor population, considering the smallness of that particular chunk of island. And Rollingstone defends that. And when they're defending it repeatedly while also simping for like cuties and stuff like that, isn't that a little bit on the nose, a little bit obvious? You know, you could hide your inclinations at the very least a little bit more, and you know, maybe people wouldn't look into you so much. Didn't they have also an editor or director or something there a few years ago who was brought in on sex charges? What, did you rehire him or something? Is that the one that's writing these tweets? Who controls your Twitter, by the way? I mean, you get pounded once, massively, and then you basically repost the same story with a different screed that somehow reads even more obtusely, and you expect that you're not going to get ratioed again. Part of me almost believes that they're doing this just to get attention, to drive the algorithm on their Twitter and Meta and shit like that they're using, because nobody really cares about Rolling Stone anymore. They sold out long ago. They don't do rock and roll anymore. They've become nothing more than a liberal tabloid. Maybe it's just because they've got a declining user base and they're like, well, you know, negative attention is good attention as long as it's on the internet. You know, it doesn't matter if people boycott the magazine. Nobody reads it anyway, so we'll get a bunch of shit posts and hate posts on our Twitter, and at least for the algorithm, it'll look good. Look at all the engagement that we're getting. Maybe we can con an investor into coming in and investing with us so that we can, you know, put out an ad campaign to try to proliferate our product, because right now we're hemorrhaging money and attention. Maybe it's literally just to get attention, but you know, there are topics you could touch on and get attention for and build liberal clout with, other than seemingly defending child sex trafficking. It would probably be beneficial for the world and for Rolling Stone, but they have not gotten the memo. It's sad to see. Again, it's like the most stupid orangutan in the zoo that keeps pressing the little button that shocks its nads because it's too stupid to learn it. It's the other one that gives it its fruit. That's about all. Peace out.